You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 4:40 is the time for the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Number as always, 609-919-9200. Pete Mackanin gets a 2-year extension today. Also a lot on the horizon coming up with the Sixers with the draft lottery next week, and we'll also get in some Brandon Graham stuff right now with Comcast Sportsnet's very own and WIP's very own Marshall Harris, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Marshall, always great to talk to you. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm good, Zach. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great, and we appreciate you coming on. So let's first address this with the Phillies. We'll get to Mackanin in just a second, but Benoit has the controversial comments yesterday about the bullpen, how he wants some set roles within that bullpen. How do you view the comments yesterday of Benoit, who was the farthest thing from stellar on the mound yesterday?
Here's the thing. I agree with the principle of what Benoit was saying, but saying it when he said it made it sound like an excuse of sorts, and you just can't have that after you give up the runs that he gave up in the manner that he gave them up in the seventh inning of a tie ball game with the Phillies trying to earn that split against the Mariners. The timing is what's bad there, and that's something he needs to have a conversation with his manager about. Now, Pete Mackanin said about 15 minutes before his press conference and extension with Matt Klentak that he did talk to Benoit. Feels like he handled it, and that's a thing of the past now. But I don't disagree with Benoit and what he's saying. It's just the timing of it, because it makes it sound like he's making an excuse for why he was bad yesterday.
And here's my thing with it. He comes off very whining, and it's petulant behavior on his part, and you should expect better from someone that's 40 years old. But you're right. The timing of it is awful. But here's the other thing. Like, you have to understand the situation. Like, right now, the starting pitching isn't going deep into games, and this bullpen is just not that good. So you're going to have to plug and play a little bit, no?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people have been like, they need to release Benoit. I'm saying all this
that's
crazy
ridiculous
stuff. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Who would they even bring up in a situation to replace him? Because you look at what he does. Yeah, I know he's 39 years old, but he throws 95 plus. He's got experience. He had a good year last year. He just had 2 bad outings. In 12 of his 15 relief appearances, he didn't give up any runs. Now, the last 2 times out, not so great. He gave up the gave up the lead against the Chicago Cubs, and then also what he did yesterday against the Mariners. But before that, his only blemish in his previous 13 starts was a 3-run homer against Bryce Harper, and that's Bryce Harper. So you have to look at the context. I think we as media / fans / observers are way too quick to just hot take everything and not take a more nuanced and contextualized approach to what we're seeing in front of us.
Let's get to Mackanin. He gets a 2-year extension. This is something I've been advocating for a while. I thought it should have been done in the offseason.
I agree.
Why do you think it took so long to get this thing going?
Frankly, the Phillies just weren't in a hurry to do it. That's the only rationale behind it. Matt Klentak, the GM, said today, he was like, I was asked about this back at the winter meetings, and he wasn't pressed to do it. I think he was comfortable doing it the entire time, but it wasn't at the top of his things to do list, let's say. And Pete Mackanin is the kind of easygoing guy who's really happy just to have this opportunity that he didn't expect at this stage in his career to be a full-time manager. So he wasn't pressing. He was very eloquent in talking about his day-to-day approach and how having this job at this stage of his career as opposed to maybe 15, 20 years ago gives him a much more relaxed approach to doing his job.
How much longer do you think he wants to be a manager at his age?
I think he wants to see this rebuild through. I think if he has his druthers, he wants to get this team back to the playoffs and see what happens there. But I don't think he wants to manage another 10 years or anything. But I think he understands they're on the precipice of this turnaround with those guys that are in AA and AAA and on the verge. And you have an owner in John Milton who's ready to open up the pocketbook to make the bids for for the Bryce Harper / Manny Machado types. So I think he wants to see it through. I think he wants to actually manage a very good team. Right now, he's not managing a very good team. He's managing a young and inconsistent team.
And this is the state of all the Philadelphia 4 major sport teams right now. Everyone's wondering, are all these teams, are they moving in the right direction? I know there's still a lot of places that need to come in, and we still need to see a lot of these prospects deliver. But do you feel like the Phillies are moving in the right direction?
they're definitely moving in the right direction. You can look at 2 years ago when they led all of baseball in losses and ended up with the number one pick in Mickey Moniak. They've gotten better every year. I think this year's team is better than last year's team. I know last year's team got off to that 24-17 start, and everybody was making a big deal out of that, but they were very, very good in one-run games, and it was a bit of an aberration. So that explains why the record maybe isn't as good. I think individually they're playing better, and guys are doing well. The one guy, Maikel Franco, I would think he's going to come around. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% confident. The discovery and the development of guys like Aaron Altair, Cesar Hernandez, Freddie Galvis, even those are, and Odubel Herrera, those are guys you can look at and say, okay, they can be a part of what we're doing going forward or be used as huge trade chips because they're all controllable in getting what they do need going forward.
With Franco, since you brought him up, and I know Joseph is starting to come around, but I'm still skeptical if he could be the everyday first baseman and if he could do this thing consistently. But with Franco, I just don't know what to make out of him. I just feel like this is going to be his career where it's very up and down and it's inconsistent throughout the whole way.
Well, if it's going to be as up and down as it's been this year, then he won't have a career with the Phillies, I can tell you that, because they are looking for consistency out of those corner infield spots. They need big numbers there. You look at the middle, they're concentrating on defense and guys who get on base, and Cesar Hernandez and Freddie Galvis gives you a little bit more pop than what maybe you expect for Gold Gloves style defense at shortstop. But they've got to get the pop. They've got to get the power, and it's got to come from catcher, and it will, and Jorge Alfaro. I mean, it really has. When you look at Cameron Rupp and Andrew Knapp and the job they've done this year so far. But Tommy Joseph and Maikel Franco have to put up better numbers. And if they don't, they will find a first baseman and a third baseman who will. And we mentioned Manny Machado. We mentioned Rhys Hoskins, who's playing very well in AAA right now. And you look at the outfield, they look like they've got some answers with Aaron Altair and Odubel Herrera. It'll be interesting. They can go get another power outfielder, maybe somebody in their system, Roman Quinn, Nick Williams come to mind, or from outside. That's the thing. They have money to spend, and they've got, I think, around $7 million on the books next year. That's crazy. And some of that money is money that they're still paying Cole Hamels.
With Hoskins and Alfaro, right now Hoskins has a .327 average, 8 home runs, and Alfaro's hitting a .320 in AAA. What are some things that you really like about those two players, and how far away do you think they are from getting called up?
I think they're an injury away. I think they're 3 months maybe of solid play in AAA, doing what they're doing right now. Matt McClintock's favorite quote that I've ever quoted him on is very simple in terms of promoting players. He says, the player will let you know. Right now they're letting you know that they're approaching being ready. Jorge Alfaro, I'd still like to see a little bit more selectivity. He doesn't walk a lot. I mean, it doesn't matter because he mashes when he does make contact. He is a powerful man. Rhys Hoskins has developed a real keen eye at the plate, which really developed over the back half last year down in AA. So I like his even-tempered approach at the plate. He's a guy who can hit for average and hit for power and has a good eye and is drawing the walks when he's not getting stuff to hit in AAA so far. Those guys, I like what they bring. They bring middle-of-the-order power and a good approach to the plate, and that's the most important thing. Alfaro, the one thing I'm waiting on for him is that development behind the plate, because catcher, whether we like it or not, is a defense-first position, much like shortstop. Got to be strong up the middle defensively, and I'm not sure Jorge Alfaro is quite ready to take that leap on the defensive side, but I think that development is coming.
From what you hear, since you bring up that defensive side and a big part of it as well as calling a game and managing his staff, how is he in that department?
I think calling the game, it just takes some time. He's a young guy. It's coming. But that's really where we're at in terms of defensively. He has a rocket arm. He can throw guys out. But just calling the game and being able to receive the balls properly like you need to a catcher, I think that's the stuff they're still looking for the development on him. I don't think he's far away or anything. I'm saying he's not a well-rounded product. Get that experience down low while you still have serviceable guys in Andrew Knapp and Cameron Rupp to hold down the major league staff.
Marshall Harris with us right now from Comcast Sportsnet. Marshall, you got a chance to go to the AAA affiliate and get to see a little bit of J.P. Crawford. I know he's struggling under 200 on the season. What was your conversation like with J.P. Crawford, and where's his confidence that he could turn this thing around?
I think his confidence is just fine. This is the worst slump he's ever dealt with at any stage in his career, professional or otherwise. He says he's never been through anything like this. And he really isn't a guy who likes to look at tape because he doesn't want to overthink things and try to bring too much to his at-bats. But he actually went back, looked at some tape, and decided he was going to try something new after talking to the hitting coaches, Tracy and Verdi down there. And they said if you're more comfortable with a different type of approach in terms of where you're holding your hands, go ahead and do it. So he took his hands back to where they were during the 2015 season, which he had a lot of success at the high A and double A level, Clearwater and Reading. And it's made a difference. Now, I don't think he's ever going to be a power guy. He's got 2 extra base hits all season, a double and a triple. But his on-base skills are what really the Phillies are looking at and why he's their number one prospect. His on-base percentage is up. The walks are way up since the calendar turned to May, and the average is slowly but steadily creeping up towards 200, so I think they're happy with the way he's doing things. And talking to the coaches down there, they say, look, everybody faces failure. It's how you deal with failure. And right now he's failing, but he's facing it, and they want to see how he deals with adversity because you're going to do it, if not in AAA, you're definitely going to do it when you get to the major level. Everybody goes through slumps.
Marshall Harris with us right now. Marshall, let's just, before we let you run, bring up a point about the Sixers and then a point about the Eagles. With the Sixers, we know the draft lottery is next week, and we'll see the pecking order that the Sixers do fall in this year's draft. But if I could just give you, in an ideal world, you get one player in this year's draft in the first round, who's that guy that you would really want to see on the Sixers?
I only get one guy. Wow. I'd take Markelle Fultz in a second. I think he's a guy who can play off the ball with the ball in his hands, and that's what you need going up. If Ben Simmons is your guy and you want him to play point guard, you need a guy like that can play off the ball. So Markelle Fultz would be my guy.
Well, let's take it a step further. Let's say they get the 3rd overall pick. Who do you look for at number 3?
Tell me who's off the board, and I'll tell you who they should take.
Fultz and Ball.
Fultz and Ball off the board. Honestly, and this is going to shock some people, I like Jason Tatum. I like what he does and his athleticism and his ability to run the floor at that size. The length is going to be key if you're going to make a run at stopping some of these teams that are the teams that you're looking at, the Milwaukee Bucks, Cleveland as they get older, but they'll restock somehow. And then, of course, the Golden State Warriors out west. I like Tatum and what he would bring. I think he'd be a great guy to help space the floor for Simmons and company.
Are you a Malik Monk fan?
I am. I'm a Malik Monk fan. There's several guys that I like, but you've given a specific scenario. I gave you the guys. Monk was my guy if they said had 1 and 4 and Tatum was the 3rd guy off the board. It would probably be Fultz and Monk for me.
Now, if they get Lonzo Ball, let's just say, how do you look at the factor of his father, LeVar Ball, in Philadelphia? It'd be great for us in radio and TV, but how do you look at that meshing with this city?
I don't have a problem with LeVar Ball. Actually, we do a podcast every week called Measure Takes. Amy Fadil and myself. We discussed the Lonzo Ball, LeVar Ball thing this past week on it. It's posted. It's my pen tweet, MHarrisCSN. And LeVar Ball doesn't bother me at all. He's just a guy who's trying to make money for his family. And, in this entrepreneurial world that we live in, you got to remember, back when LeBron James was drafted and he had his friends and people were like, your friends are doing all this stuff for you instead of getting a real agent, marketing company, whatever. He's like, no, I want my friends. They're the guys I trust. They all went to school, got their degrees. And look at him now. That guy isn't more than a basketball player. He's a billion-dollar force off the court.
And before we let you run, as we're talking to Marshall Harris, let me just squeeze in a point about the Eagles. And we'll need one of your measured takes on this because there's a lot of hot takes out about Brandon Graham. With Brandon Graham, how do you view this situation with some reports saying it's a holdout, some reports saying there's not much to it?
I don't know the situation. I haven't heard from Brandon Graham. I think I'm in the boat with a lot of people in that respect. If he's trying to get more money, more power to him. Contracts are guaranteed until they're not in the NFL. You know how that goes. So I know people are saying, well, he just renegotiated. But, if you can redo a deal and maybe the Eagles could benefit as well by putting some more time on that deal, have at it. Has he missed anything that's involuntary yet? I don't think so. So I got no problem.
What do you think a fair number would be? For example, he's making $6.5 million this year, had one really impact season, got the new deal in 2015. What do you think a fair jump would be if you had to handicap this?
See, I'm not good at the handicapping and the jumping. We live in a capitalistic society, and because we do, I just say whatever they're willing to pay you, whatever you can get out of them, get out of them. Because on the back end, he's not getting everything that he could in the contract, because that's just how the NFL is. So the fair number is whatever he can get out of them. And maybe it's not a quote-unquote fair number, but that's why I have no problem with him pressing to get as much money as he can added to that contract right now.
Is this how you negotiate at Comcast Sportsnet, Marshall?
Man,
what's a fair number for Marshall Harris's salary?
as much as I can get out of him.
How much am I worth to the company? That's what Marshall asks. It's a very good way to negotiate. Hey, Marshall, we appreciate it. Thanks for the insight as always.
Zach, thanks for having me anytime, man. Thanks.
There's Marshall Harris from Comcast Sportsnet joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Here's how I interpret the Brandon Graham situation. And this is a sport where you get your head just totally bashed in, and if you want to go get more money, all the power to you. But with that being said, I'm skeptical to give him a steep increase. And here's why. You just extended him in 2015. You just gave him that new deal in 2015. He's making $6.5 million this upcoming year and $6.5 million the year after that. He had a phenomenal season last year. Not taking that away from him. But with that being said, from an Eagles perspective, why I wouldn't just make the big increase now is because you have him still under contract for 2 more years, and I want to see if he's able to replicate what he did last year, and then not only replicate it, but make it even better. That's what I want to see before I give him a big deal. And that's the gamble that you take if you're a franchise, because if he comes out there and has a monster year this year, then when he renegotiates next year and pulls the same stuff and says, hey, I got to get more money, then guess what? You're going to have to pay him because you can't afford to lose him. But with that being said, we don't know what he's asking for, if he's asking for anything more with the conflicting reports out there. For example, if he's asking for, an increase of $3 million, and add on $3 million more per year, okay, that's a fair asking price if you project him to continue to be the player that we saw last year and improve it even more. But these contract things, sometimes they get messy and, they're interesting because we don't know what he's asking for. And we don't even know if there's an actual holdout here yet. He hasn't missed anything technically because right now it's not mandatory. The next wait and see thing, as long as we don't get a new contract in place and they make some type of extension, is when you have the mandatory dates. If he doesn't show up for the mandatory dates, then you say to yourself, okay, this thing's legit. And then we'll see how long it lasts. We've seen this before. Deshaun Jackson, remember all the hype about that? Yeah, it didn't last that long. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. What we'll do right now is we'll take a break. When we come back, we got to play a little bit of this Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez interview. It was very awkward, to say the least, and of course, Derek Jeter's getting his number retired on Mother's Day, actually, on Sunday. So we'll play you some of the interview with Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. It was a bizarre situation, and Jeter technically, according to Dan Le Batard, is not too happy about that. So we'll get into all that, and also Jeff Mosher is going to join us at 5:15 to talk a little bit about the EAGLES Eagles. 4:57 is the time for the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studio. Zach Gelb Show coming back with hour number 2 right after this.